Join me on my short but super jam-packed trip to Gdańsk, Poland. So long, Ireland, and hello, Poland. Talk about a completely different aesthetic. So someone is getting older, and that someone is me. Today is my birthday. I landed in Gdańsk, Poland about 15 minutes ago. This is going to be a short trip for me, but it's going to be super packed, and I brought nothing but my backpack, and I can already tell that I forgot quite a few things like my sunglasses, but that's okay. I'm going to have 55 hours of tons of really cool stuff, so time to head to lunch. So I really only forgot painkiller and my sunglasses, but I was able to quickly and inexpensively get both of those things at a pharmacy. On my way to the city center of Gdansk, I made my first stop of many at a milk bar for a quick bite to eat. A Polish milk bar is a traditional, budget-friendly cafeteria serving simple, home-style Polish cuisine originating from the communist era to provide affordable meals to the public. Once I made it into the city center, it took no time at all for me to see a sign for Solidarność, or Solidarity, the Polish labor union, which was a huge part of why I wanted to visit Gdańsk, Poland. So I had some yummy pierogi for lunch at a milk bar, and now I'm on my way to the Solidarity Museum. First, I'm going to check out a temporary exhibition, and then I have a 3-hour Solidarity tour. It's going to be just me, and I'm super stoked. What an awesome birthday present to myself. Based on the title of my YouTube channel, it probably won't come as a surprise that I do have an interest in politics, not only US politics, Irish and UK politics, but I am currently writing a master's dissertation on the fall of communism in both Poland and Romania. So this trip was partially a fun way for me to spend my birthday, but we could also say that there was an academic and intellectual element to it as well. Although my style of travel tends to include lots of museums and walking tours anyway, but that's what I enjoy. Here we have what's called the Three Crosses Monument, or the Monument to the Fallen Shipyard Workers of 1970. It is a memorial dedicated to the workers who were killed during the protests against the communist regime in December 1970, symbolizing the struggle for freedom and solidarity in Poland. My first stop, which was the European Solidarity Center, was at the Gdańsk Shipyard, which is renowned as the birthplace of the Solidarity movement in the 1980s, which played a crucial role in the eventual fall of communism in Eastern Europe. While the European Solidarity Center does have lots of exhibits, it's a whole lot more than just a museum. Before my 3-hour Solidarity tour, I had some time to check out the center's temporary exhibition all about the Gdańsk Shipyard and the history of the state-owned shipbuilding industry in Gdansk. As mentioned previously regarding the Monument to the Fallen Shipyard Workers of 1970, in December of 1970, there were a series of violent clashes between striking workers and the communist government, resulting from an increase in food prices, and this led to numerous deaths, and it marked a significant moment of resistance against the oppressive regime. I've heard the Gdańsk Shipyard described as a town within a town, and it had its own in-house kindergarten. It wasn't until after World War II that Poland became a communist state under Soviet influence, with the Polish Workers' Party taking control through manipulated elections and repression. The Gdańsk Shipyard is so significant because it was a pivotal site of resistance, and it led to the formation of the Solidarity movement that challenged and eventually helped dismantle the communist regime in Poland.
Upragniwieni, którzy dziś razem z nami są przeciw tej sowieckiej Rosji.
Prior to Solidarity being officially recognized by the communist Polish government, Gdańsk Shipyard workers put forth 21 demands on plywood. One of those demands was the right to have an officially recognized workers' union. That demand was granted and Solidarity was born. Unfortunately, in the early 1980s, the Polish government was not fond of all of Solidarity's activism, and martial law was implemented in Poland from December of 1981 to July of 1983. During that period, Solidarity was forced to operate underground. Here we have a model of an interrogation room that would have been used by state security forces to question or intimidate dissidents or suspects, and this is a reflection of the oppressive atmosphere of the communist regime. Food rationing in Poland during the 1980s exacerbated public discontent, which fueled the momentum for Solidarity's negotiations with the government, ultimately leading to the fall of communism in Poland. Here we have quite a few photos of Mr. Lech Wałęsa with members of Solidarity. Lech Wałęsa was an electrician in the Gdańsk Shipyard, and he emerged as a prominent leader of the Solidarity movement, playing a key role in negotiating the end of communist rule in Poland, and later becoming the country's first democratically elected president. I thought this was a pretty cool addition to the exhibition. You could leave your own note of some kind to show your solidarity. And here you can see the little note that I left. My tour guide Michael and I paid a visit to the roof of the European Solidarity Center to get a good view of the Gdańsk Shipyard before making our way over to the historic conference hall where the August 1980 Accords were signed, addressing many of the 21 demands presented by the striking shipyard workers and leading to the official recognition of Solidarity. This stop also included trying a fruity soda from Poland's communist era. Up next was a stroll through the Gdańsk Shipyard to see how it looks today. At its height, the shipyard employed around 17,000 workers, making it one of the largest and most significant shipyards in Poland. Today, the Gdańsk Shipyard only employs around 2,000 workers, a notable decrease from its peak. But parts of the shipyard have been transformed into social spaces featuring artwork, bars, and cultural venues, reflecting its ongoing role in the community. My 3-hour tour was an absolute blast, but by this point, my brain was honestly kind of fried, and I was ready for my delicious birthday dinner. Fun fact, in Polish, the word pierogi is already plural, so while in the United States people tend to say pierogis, I've worked hard to train myself to say that I'm going to eat some pierogi. Well, my first day in Gdansk was a success. It was super jam-packed, but that's exactly what I wanted for my birthday, and I am beyond ready to get to my hostel and get some rest for day 2. What a lovely view at the end of a long day, and as I try to find my hostel. Found it. Day 1 in the books. So, day 2, here we go. On day 2, while making my way to the second milk bar of my trip, I stumbled upon a whole bunch of junk. But I happen to really like looking at junk, but I decided it could wait until after lunch because I was starving. Believe it or not, I was able to get my entire lunch for only 33 Polish zloty, which is about 6.5 British pounds or 8.5 US dollars. In addition to my pierogi and schnitzel, with this meal I ordered some kompot, which is a traditional non-alcoholic beverage made by boiling fruit such as apples, strawberries, or cherries with sugar and water. After my delicious milk bar lunch, I went back to look at what the street vendors had for sale, and I found the most adorable handmade earrings. They were made by an almost 80-year-old babszka, which is Polish for grandma. In case Gdansk wasn't stunning and exciting enough, I was lucky enough to arrive during what's called St. Dominic's Fair. St. Dominic's Fair dates back to the year 1260, and every year it brings hundreds of exhibitors to Gdansk. My next stop was the World War II Museum, which was easily one of the most impressive museums I've ever been to. This room was intended to show what a street in Poland might have looked like prior to the outbreak of World War II, with lots of shop owners trying to make a living for themselves and provide goods to their fellow citizens. One thing the World War II Museum did exceptionally well was providing balanced emphasis on both Germany's and the Soviet Union's roles in the events of World War II. As a secondary student in the United States, I remember learning quite a bit about the Holocaust and the atrocities carried out by Germany, but the atrocities carried out by the Soviet Union were only briefly covered, which is really a shame. Here we can see a map of Poland that shows how exactly it was partitioned by the Soviet Union and the Third Reich. Here we have what was known as a Little Red Corner, a term for areas in factories, state institutions, and schools across the Soviet Union where communist symbols and other indoctrination tools could be found. The museum even had a miniature Soviet-style cinema.
Sowieci natychmiast przystąpili do przebudowy gospodarki wolnorynkowej na centralnie sterowaną. Państwo wszędzie przejęło większe prywatne gospodarstwa rolne i majątki kościoły. Partyjne komitety gminne rozparcelowały.
These were tin plates that were made for forced laborers in the Gdańsk Shipyard. During World War II, Gdansk was a site of forced labor where thousands of prisoners and displaced persons were compelled to work under brutal conditions in shipyards and other industries critical to the Nazi war effort. During this period, Gdansk also witnessed the atrocities of the Holocaust. with the Nazi regime carrying out systematic persecution and extermination of Jews and other targeted groups. I found this room of the museum to be incredibly impactful because it was intended to represent the same exact street that we previously saw within the museum and what that street may have looked like in the midst of World War II and following the events of the war. Of course, following the events of World War II, it was claimed by Winston Churchill that an Iron Curtain had descended across the continent of Europe. I thought this display was extremely neat because it showcased events that took place on both sides of the Iron Curtain in the second half of the 20th century. And I think it's about time for another visit to a milk bar. Once again, I ordered some schnitzel and compote, but to my disappointment, I was served beets and I was expecting that to be cranberry sauce. I kept seeing these bikes all over the city, and after my milk bar meal, I was in a bit of a rush to get over to the other side of the city. I wanted to visit the historic conference hall again to buy myself some souvenirs, so I gave it a try. It wasn't exactly the smoothest bike ride ever, but it served its purpose and I was able to get back over to the shipyard area of the city. These replica ration cards were probably the coolest souvenirs I could have gotten. Of course, I would never want to actually have to use a ration card. With the conference hall closing at 7 and my next activity, a sunset cruise, not taking place until 8, I had some free time to wander around the old shipyard. I really am a sucker for old buildings, and I just love seeing the old train tracks through this area. If these walls could only talk. It was pretty amazing getting to see the old shipyard from the water, especially as the sun was setting, so I think these views can speak for themselves. So, politically speaking, I am pretty far from being a communist, but I did say I'm a sucker for old buildings. There is just something about these communist era flats that I absolutely love. I've been on a few different touristy canal cruises in different cities, and a lot of times when they say watch your head, they're being drama queens, but no, on this one, you really had to watch your head. Even though a lot of Gdansk was reconstructed after World War II and the city is ever evolving, there are new hotels being built in the city, it's pretty amazing to me that there are some buildings that were ruined in World War II and they are still how they were left at the end of the war. My second day in Gdansk was an absolute blast, but now it's time for day 3. My first stop was getting some breakfast, and rather than going to a milk bar, I decided to check out a place called Retro Café. Next up, I wanted to check out the Museum of the Polish Post Office. So the post office in Gdansk holds significant historical importance because it's the site of one of the first battles of World War II, where Polish postal workers heroically defended the building against overwhelming Nazi forces during the invasion of Poland on September 1st, 1939, which was the first day of World War II. One thing that's pretty neat is that the museum still has a fully functioning post office, so it was a great place to send some postcards. The second to last thing on my Gdansk to-do list was something I didn't even know existed prior to getting to the city, but it was something I definitely wanted to do. So day 3, my final day in Gdansk, has been go, go, go. I had some breakfast at the Retro Café. I went to the Museum of the Polish Post Office. I have gone into, I think, 3 different gift shops. And now I am on my way to climb a crane before my walking tour. So here we go. I had walked by this beautiful green crane in the old shipyard about half a dozen times, and as luck would have it, it was actually a tourist attraction that you could pay to climb, and I could not resist fitting that into my schedule. I'm pretty sure the old shipyard area stole a little piece of my heart, but it was time for me to finally say goodbye and take part in the final activity of my trip. Whee! Fortunately, by the last day of my trip, riding around on a bicycle was a little bit easier for me. Unfortunately, by the time I made it back to the Old Town area for a walking tour, someone had managed to fall into the canal. Because I did spend so many of my 55 hours in Gdansk in the old shipyard area, I did want to go on a walking tour of the old town before I left. The walking tour even included entry into St. Mary's Church, which is one of the largest brick churches in the world. After the walking tour, it was time for my 4th and final, at least for this trip, milk bar meal. and some ice cream before taking a train to the airport. Poland is very easily one of my favorite countries to visit, and I am so incredibly grateful for everything I was able to see and do on this short trip.